At Ashley, you'll find colorful furniture that brings your home to life. Ashley makes it easier than ever to express your personal style with an array of looks in fun trending hues to choose from earth tones to vibrant colors to calming blues and greens. Ashley has pieces for every room in the house in the season's most sought-after shades. A more colorful life starts at Ashley. Shop in-store, online today. Ashley, for the love of home.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's episode, we're going to break down the Delmarva Shorebirds 2024 season. The Shorebirds did not have a great record overall, going 53-78, but they had some interesting highlights along the way with plenty of young players taking promising steps forward in their development during their time in Salisbury this year. And we'll get to all of that in just a moment. But first, Orioles on the Verge is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the Delmarva Shorebirds just wrapped up their season with Sunday's regular season finale, closing out the year as a 53-78 record. Their final game did go down as a win. That was good for last place in the Carolina League North in the overall standings. The Shorebirds also finished in last place in the first and second halves of the season. However, there were some highlights. We saw a few young players making their full season debuts, put together promising years, including some members of the 2023 draft class, as well as players that the Orioles have signed internationally in the last few years. And often with the Shorebirds, they could have nights where they were a really exciting team to watch. They could have games with good starting pitching, a good performance from their lineup. But there were times where the lineup would slump. The bullpen could be hit or miss at points, and the defense often struggled. So a little bit of a contradiction, I think, with the Shorebirds. And Nick, I'll start with you here. On one hand, you look at their overall record, which obviously is not very good, but it doesn't really tell the whole story of this team.
No, I don't really care all that much about the minor league team records, to be honest. I mean, you can make an argument that, yeah, if your minor league affiliates aren't winning games, then like the players aren't that good. But yeah, I think there's a lot more that goes into this. And this Delmarva team, yeah, some nights are rough to watch, but it was still one of my favorite levels to watch this year. And I mean, we're gonna dive into specific players, but I mean, there's a long list of guys who you look at what they did in Delmarva this year, specifically the bats, like Leandro Arias. Thomas Sosa. Look at some of these younger international prospects specifically. Maybe their stat lines didn't look that great in Delmarva, but they ended the year all in Aberdeen as like 19-year-old kids. So that tells you something right there. And they weren't just moved up to make room for the draft picks. The draft picks moved to Aberdeen pretty quickly themselves. So yeah, I think we saw a lot of really good things down at Delmarva, a lot of arms that weren't there very long that I thought would be there for a little bit longer. And a couple of guys who I think we'll definitely talk about tonight that stayed there all year that are a little bit perplexing. But yeah, I think surprised despite the record, I think this was one of the better years for some of the talent down there in Delmarva. That at least started the year in Delmarva.
Yeah, I have to agree. And Delmarva in particular, I don't really worry about the record so much because it's almost like full season FCL, but just moved up north to the cold weather in the beginning of the season. Yeah, plenty of great development there, especially on the pitching side. I feel like a lot of the biggest names, and a lot of the guys that were the biggest risers on our top 50 list throughout the year ended the year in high A and got there pretty quickly. And that didn't slow them down at all. I think pretty much everybody that got promoted continued to have success once they were promoted. And yeah, Delmarva it's a great starting point. It is interesting, the guys that stayed there all year. I don't know if that's more of just like there's not room, or if we think it's better to work on things down here in a little bit of an easier environment before you make that jump. But regardless, love the development of the pitching. And then, like Nick said, the hitting, it might not jump off at the page, but a guy like Thomas Sosa, who's still super raw, super young, showed off the potential he has in the FCL, and he only had a OPS just under 700 in Delmarva, but was still super impressive, putting up elite exit velocities. And to me, it says a lot that they trusted him enough to go up to Aberdeen to end the year, even though, he's pretty much overmatched at this point in his career, but they must see it as him being able to handle it. Aaron Estrada, big breakout this year, started in Delmarva, started really bad in Delmarva. So, yeah, even guys that started in the FCL and ended in Delmarva, like Miguel Rodriguez, Edwin Amparo, Fernando Peguero in the last week, I'll talk about him, Ellis Cuevas, they all showed signs of life at full season ball to get ready for next season. I think overall it's got to be a success, and pretty much this season in Delmarva for me was the international side of the organization has arrived. It's not like still creeping up, which I mean technically it is, but to me it's like it's here. It's all the way up in Norfolk with Basayo, it's in Bowie, it's all over Aberdeen now, it's all over Delmarva, and it's here to stay and continue to get better and better at developing these guys.
Yeah, I don't have much concern about the win-loss record. I think if you're a fan of the Shorebirds, it matters to you. And I think that the organization, I'm sure in an ideal scenario, would see these players be in a winning environment. But that doesn't necessarily have to come in the minor leagues, especially at the lower levels of the system. Let's start off with the bats, because as you guys both mentioned, there were a lot of young hitters who broke out here in various ways. Sosa and Estrada are two that jump out, and Yudis Bordon put together a pretty nice year. And although his bigger breakout came after he was promoted to Aberdeen, we saw Leandro Arias start the year off in Delmarva, missed some time with an injury, but when he got back, laid the groundwork for what ended up being a strong finish to this season at the high A level. So, Nick, I'll go back to you. What stood out about this group?
Arias was interesting because he missed over a month due to an injury, and then didn't put up the great numbers in Delmarva like we talked about, but was still promoted to Aberdeen at 19. I just think that should tell you a lot about how the organization views him. I also think, I was looking around earlier, it looks like he is probably going to be one of the top draft picks in the Dominican Winter League, if anyone interested in some offseason minor league content already. But yeah, I think if he can keep the strikeouts down next year, because it looked like they took a bump up this year, but if he can keep the strikeouts down next year and start taking the kind of flashes of power that a lot of evaluators, at least nationally, when they talk about Arias, the reason they're so excited about Arias is because they see a lot of power potential, like plus power potential in that bat. If he can start showing more of that next year, like game power, I think we potentially see Leandro Arias break out next year. Aaron Estrada, just like hitters hit like that, and that's what he does. Like, he hit 296 when he was with Delmarva. Strikeouts were up, but he hit 8 home runs, which was shocking. That's a hard park to do that in. Wasn't expecting that power at all. He's also closing out the year as a 19-year-old in high A. Showed the speed, got on base. Once he got to Aberdeen, like, the strikeouts went down, and he finished as a league average hitter, as like a 19-year-old in high A to end the year. So I'll take that. I think I said last week in our prospect re-rank, kind of Aaron Estrada, I envision like Freddie Ben Cosme with power. And again, I don't have his exit velo data, but I think if that power is there, like, he's got the good hit tool, he's got good walk and strikeout numbers, like, he could, I don't know, like, peak Aaron Estrada, legitimately a future starting second baseman in the big leagues with double-digit home run potential. I like that. And yeah, Sosa, I kept saying at the start of the year when I watched Sosa, I saw a guy who clearly belonged, but he was like dripping with tools and potential. But he was, like Bob said earlier, was just very raw. And this year, I figured it was just show improvements. By the end of the year, when we're doing this episode, can we say that Thomas Sosa improved from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? But then he got hurt. They eased him back into it. He didn't play a full game for a while after he returned from his injury. Still kind of felt the same, but like it wasn't super ideal because he was a guy that I feel like he needed to be in that lineup every single night getting reps. He also got promoted to Aberdeen at the age of 19, and the strikeouts got better each month. The walks got better each month. I don't know. We saw him put up those back-to-back games at one point. He stopped sharing the videos after that, but the back-to-back videos of him punching like 112 plus 114 mile per hour doubles as a 18, 19-year-old kid, that's serious juice. That whole trio there was unbelievable. And I think, again, the fact that they got promoted at such a young age to high A speaks volumes about how the organization views them.
Yeah, these three guys are like legit prospects, and it, like I was saying, the surface level stats may not dictate that, but these guys are all 19, finished in high A, like Nick said. Aaron Estrada, terrible month April, like legitimately bad. But if you combine his stats from low A and high A from May 1st on, he had a 312 average, 839 OPS, 145 WRC plus, 9.2% walk rate, 14.6% strikeout rate. Just, I don't know what more you could ask for a guy his age, switch hitter at that, in especially in Delmarva with the pitcher-friendly ballpark. Leandro Arias was just super interesting because, like Nick said, when he got hurt, he was holding his own. Then he goes down into the FCL in his rehab and just owns it. Like, he walked over 15% of the time, struck out less than 12% of the time, had a ridiculous 579 isolated slugging percentage with 3 doubles, a triple, and 2 home runs in just 26 plate appearances. So there's your power. Clearly he's got it. And then he comes back up and kind of just holds his own again, gets promoted to Aberdeen, and just improves at every facet of his game except the in-game power. But we know it's there. And more than anything to me, and I know this is not like much, but to me he just looks the part. Like, I could just feel it watching him play, that he's just a ball player that's going to continue to get better. We'll see if that is true in the long run, but to me, I like Arias a heck of a lot. And Thomas Sosa, talk about improvement. Just like Estrada, who started off so slow, if you take Thomas Sosa, his first month or so, beginning of the season to May 5th, he struck out 37.6% of the time, had an 85 WRC plus, 605 OPS, 11% walk rate, which was good, which if you go from May 6th to August 10th, through August 10th, which is what his last game in Delmarva, he dropped his strikeout rate in that time all the way down to 22.6, while keeping a very similar walk rate, 747 OPS, 121 WRC plus. So clear as day improvement there. And then obviously went up to high A where he was a little overmatched, but 33.3% strikeout rate and a 13.1% walk rate. So it was still taking his walks. Just got to continue to cut down that strikeout rate and get that raw power, which we know is 110 plus exit velocities at 19, and get that into games more often.
I'll just touch on Mordon for a moment before we dive into the pitching staff. Mordon was promoted to Aberdeen before the season and still ended up leading the Shorebirds with 13 home runs. Young catcher at 20 years old, showed good power along with the 13 homers, also posted a 113 WRC plus and a 169 ISO. I think that there are some things that he clearly needs to work on. The hit tool at times leaves a lot to be desired. I know that there are questions about his defense, but for someone that young to put up that kind of power in their first full year of pro ball is a pretty encouraging sign. So,
at Ashley, you'll find colorful furniture that brings your home to life. Ashley makes it easier than ever to express your personal style with an array of looks in fun trending hues to choose from earth tones to vibrant colors to calming blues and greens. Ashley has pieces for every room in the house in the season's most sought-after shades. A more colorful life starts at Ashley. Shop in store, online today. Ashley, for the love of home.
We'll go now to the pitching staff, which you could say overall was the highlight of this team. The Shorebirds actually placed third in the Carolina League in strikeouts this season. Now, they were also among the league leaders in walks, again, placing third. But there were a lot of good pitchers who came through Delmarva this year. And some of those guys are going to get more discussion and more airtime in our next episode later this week, which is going to break down Aberdeen's season. So for recaps on Luis De Leon, Nestor Herman, Michael Ferret's season, you're going to want to check out that episode. But all three of those guys got off to very good starts at Delmarva before earning their promotions to Aberdeen. There were some pitchers who had very strong statistical cases for making the jump to Aberdeen before the season ended and ultimately never got there. Blake Money logged 103 innings for the Shorebirds, striking out 119 batters in that span while walking just 25 and posting a 3.15 ERA. Braxton Bragg had perhaps the best second half of any pitcher in the Orioles minor league system. He was dominant over the months of July and August and then into September. He ultimately logged 96 in the third innings for the Shorebirds. Riley Cooper gave Delmarva a very solid 88 innings. Jacob Cravey had his moments, 83 and 2/3 innings pitched. And then Juan Rojas, the guy that we've been talking about for a while, going back to when he was acquired by the Orioles in the Jorge Lopez trade in 2022. Young left-hander with good stuff, but has not been able to stay healthy since joining the Orioles system. He did, however, have a nice run at Delmarva this year after he came off the IL, delivering 53 and 2/3 innings with the Shorebirds and fanning 64 batters in that stretch. So if you're going to look at the balance of the season, Money and Bragg are the guys that jump out at you. And Cooper, had a good year as well. I can't figure out why they were not promoted to Aberdeen, and that's perhaps something we could talk about here. But just on their numbers alone and their performances at Delmarva, I want to get your guys' thoughts, starting with Nick.
Yeah, I guess just to look at Cooper and Money first, like you said, both these guys had great seasons. I question how the org views them because they're both national champs at LSU, like the premier SEC school in college baseball. Both turned 23 in just a couple of weeks. Neither was promoted, while a lot of the younger arms, less experienced arms, I mean, Michael Ferret, like you mentioned, was a JUCO kid who had a couple of innings at Delmarva, gets to jump to Aberdeen. Nestor Herman was from Seattle, misses a big stretch of the season, returns pretty much instantly, gets promoted after he returned to the mound and found his footing again. Like there were a lot. Luis De Leon, he had innings last year. He rightfully, deservedly so, got promoted when he did. But there are a lot of guys who I feel like jumped Cooper and Money this year, despite Cooper and Money putting up really big numbers. I think maybe that tells you something. I don't know. Like maybe you can move Riley Cooper into the bullpen and a path opens up for him. I think that could be intriguing. There's obviously no physical projection there left with Riley Cooper. He is who he is. But Blake Money is the interesting one, the more interesting one for me, though, because like he had 119 strikeouts, just 25 walks, 103 innings. The FIP and XFIP are both sub 3. They gave him a $150,000 signing bonus. It's a 17th round draft pick. Like it wasn't an innings thing in Aberdeen, I don't think, because of all those guys who jumped him in the rotation. I don't know. I think maybe that tells you something. I don't know. I feel like the more advanced SEC arm who was successful all year would have gotten promoted, and he didn't. So for me, like that kind of raises some red flags.
The only other thing I could think of for Blake Money, who just was fantastic, especially after a pretty unlucky start to the season. I feel like his FIP was way better than his ERA for most of the year, and then by the end, it was pretty much in line because he was that good down the stretch. But 28% strikeout rate, 5.9% walk rate, only a 211 average against. But he's 6'7", 240 pounds he's listed as. So maybe they just felt like whatever we're working on here, let's not mix it up too much. Let's not mess up a good thing. I mean, he was the opening day starter for them. So I feel like there's some hope that they think that he could be a starter long term, but maybe Cooper especially, I think, is going to be a reliever eventually. I just feel like he did not have enough strikeout stuff, started walking more guys as the year went on. I think a bullpen role is definitely in there for him, but Blake Money, that's the one where I thought he could have been promoted for sure at the end of the season, but maybe for being a big, tall guy that they felt like keeping him where he was comfortable. I'm not sure, but Braxton Bragg for me was the one that was like, why is this guy not getting promoted? He's almost 24 years old. He was not walking anybody, a 5.4% walk rate, 30.1% strikeout rate, and clearly better than the competition in low A because his last 7 starts, he had a 0.98 ERA over 36.2 innings, only walking 4 batters and striking out 47. So I don't know what's going on there. Probably reliever long term. I mean, I think he could be a really good reliever with his deceptive sidearmy delivery and his location plus probably going to be pretty good whenever that comes out. So it's interesting. These guys, I still like them, but I'm not sure, like you said, if they're going to have the stuff or the upside as the Ferretts, Gibsons, and Ermans of the world.
Yeah, Bob, that's a good point with Cooper, that maybe the strikeout and walk numbers were a little up and down this year. And with Bragg, his first half was, I think he had some tough luck in some outings. He was also not getting very deep into games. And then it was really about the end of July where he turned things on and then was dominant from there. I agree. I thought that he should have been promoted to Aberdeen before this season ended. And the only thing that I can really and the only conclusion I can really draw without knowing anything else, and this is just pure speculation on my part, is that pitcher promotions slowed down as Bragg was heating up. So, they were not bringing guys that were part of this year's draft class up to Delmarva to get innings in. We didn't see a lot of movement from Aberdeen to Bowie down the stretch, and you've had constant back and forth between AAA and the majors this year to fill in innings in the bullpen. And I think that I can't remember off the top of my head, and either one of you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like outside of the undrafted free agents that went to Delmarva, along with the Keeler Morphe, Yerbert Cartea types coming up from the short season levels, that Nestor Herman's promotion from Delmarva to Aberdeen was really the last big one that we saw this year on the pitching side. And that was in the second half of the season. It wasn't like that happened 2 weeks ago. That was early on in the second half.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a lot easier for the hitters. Like you saw that wave of promotions for the final week of the season going from Delmarva to Aberdeen. I feel like it's a whole lot easier for the bats just to be like, all right, go to Aberdeen, take a couple hacks in the box, like you're good. Here's a nice little taste of where you're going to start next year. But for the pitchers, I feel like you're on your schedule, you've got your rotation, you've got everything involved there. I feel like there's a lot more going into a move for the pitcher. So like once you get to this point of the year and you're also reaching like your innings limits, guys are getting shut down. Like, Edgar Portis ended the year on the development list. No cause for concern there. He reached his innings limit probably. So like why have a guy move and when you could just finish the year down there? I do think that's the thing with Bragg because it was that first half of the year or so, he did struggle with consistency. But then he found his groove. Bob rattled off the numbers, just unbelievable. I guess when I was looking at it, maybe like he was a reliever when he was at Nebraska. He was also roommates with Cade Povich, by the way. But he transferred to Dallas Baptist in his final year of college. That's when he worked as a starter. So this was his first year as a pro, only second year as a starter. I don't know if maybe there's like an adjustment period. They're tinkering with his mix. They're tinkering with his profile, whatever it was. Maybe trying to better set him up for success to be a starter long-term. And then once he settled in and adjusted, you saw that continued success, but he stayed healthy all year. Finished strong down the stretch. I don't know. He doesn't have a ton of velo, but I know coming out of college, he was touching like 96, 97. And like Bob said, he's got that kind of, sidearm release point. I almost wonder if there is this, if anything, I think Braxton Bragg created a really solid floor this year in my eyes, where maybe he doesn't work out as a starter as he moves up because of the velo, but he has such good location, such good walk and strikeout numbers, good swing and miss stuff. He's got that little bit of a unique delivery. If he can run it up to 96, 97 in a bullpen role, I think that's going to help his value a lot moving forward. But yeah, at least he ended the year strong. And then some other guys, like real quick to close out the pitchers there with Delmarva, like you mentioned, Yerbert Cartea, 21 years old, 6'5" righty, signed out of Venezuela in May of 2022. I think I said after his first outing in Delmarva a few weeks ago that I was really intrigued because he struggled to find the zone a little bit. I think he hit a couple guys in that first outing. I think I said he looked like kind of like a baby giraffe learning how to walk because he's so tall and lanky and struggled to put it all together. But you look at his final line in Delmarva, he pitched 24 innings with the Shorebirds, had a 1.11 ERA, 31 strikeouts to 11 walks. Like, he throws in the mid to upper 90s. He's got a deep pitch mix. I love what I see out of him in terms of like physical projection as well. I think he ended the year on a super high note. Juan Rojas, he doesn't turn 21 until January. Was finally healthy, had good strikeout numbers, limited contact. I almost wonder if he could be next year's Moises Chase-esque jump next year. We'll see, but just glad to see him healthy. And one more name to throw out there for the pitchers in Delmarva, Ty Weatherly. He's old. He's an old man down there. He turns 24 in a couple days, and he missed pretty much all year with an injury. But like, he had 35 innings in total this year, a 2.02 ERA, and 48 strikeouts in those 35 innings. He's 6'6". He's lanky as hell, but I don't know. I think he's kind of a super sleeper, interesting arm down there in Delmarva.
Yeah, talk about a guy who, if you move him to the bullpen, could probably move pretty quick. He's got excellent stuff. It's all about any type of control for him. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Weatherly. Echo Correa, he got promoted earlier on. Doesn't have great numbers, but young and promising. It's just the pitching is astronomically deep in this organization now, almost like the hitting was when Elias first took over. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. One more name though before we move on to Aberdeen or wrap this one up. I don't know if you guys are still intrigued right now or what your thoughts are on Braylon Tavera or what you saw out of him. If you just look at his player page and look at his numbers, they aren't good at all. And I think if you look at how much money he got as a signing bonus, he's one of the higher paid guys in the Elias era. And I think those numbers he put up this year make it look even worse. But and it's no shot at the international program at all. It's thriving right now. Even if Michael Hernandez and Braylon Tavera turn out to be busts, like what this organization is doing on the international side of things is night and day different. But I don't know. I just always had the questions about Tavera because I felt like what I saw, the scouting report and the stats, like nothing ever matched up with him. I felt better after we talked with Anthony Villa before the season started. And you got kind of get like, sift through everything, the front office speak there with him. But I felt a little bit better about Tavera entering the season. And then I know he got hurt, I think a couple of times. He landed on the IL. He's only 20 years old as well, or 19. He doesn't turn 20 until late February, actually, the next year. So I don't know. I think I saw enough to let's see what he can do next year back in Delmarva. But I don't know what you guys thought about Tavera this year.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
At Ashley, you'll find colorful furniture that brings your home to life. Ashley makes it easier than ever to express your personal style with an array of looks in fun trending hues to choose from earth tones to vibrant colors to calming blues and greens. Ashley has pieces for every room in the house in the season's most sought-after shades. A more colorful life starts at Ashley. Shop in store, online today. Ashley, for the love of home.
You know what makes me not give up on Braylon Tavera at all is Michael Hernandez is back, guys. I don't know if you know this, but since August 15th, to the end of the season, about a month, 279 average, 741 OPS, 129 WRC plus, 14.6% walk rate, 24.4% strikeout rate. Great defense, apparently, at shortstop and third base. I mean, talk about being on your last breath and then finally showing something. I'm not going to say I did just say he's back, but I'm encouraged. I'm not going to say that he's like going to get his prospect status right back, but I think he might have earned himself another shot next year back in Delmarva to begin the year. But that alone gives me hope with Tavera, especially because with Hernandez, they just didn't move him up until it was like a last resort, it seemed like this year. So Tavera, it seems like they're at least comfortable with him failing at that level, at that age, and hoping he can learn from it. So we'll see. He can steal bases. He hit his first home run in the last game of the season. That was probably a nice relief. If he could tap into that power a little more often, get the hit tool going, maybe there's some hope.
Yeah, when I saw Tavera last month when I went to Delmarva, it was a good night for him. He went 2 for 4 in that game. He had some really good at bats. What I saw there was good plate approach, pace and hitter with a line drive stroke, and the walks did go up as the season went on, and the strikeouts went down. So if you want to take away something encouraging from the final weeks of the season with Tavera, that's it. A few things that I've kind of noticed, though, when I was also watching him is that as he's starting to fill out, I do see more of a corner profile going forward, and that's going to put more pressure on him to develop power. And the other thing is that although he didn't miss, in the grand scheme of things, that much time this year with the injury, it was still about a month and a half where he was not at low A, and I kind of wonder what that time there could have done for him, and if some of the positives that we saw towards the end of the season would have surfaced a little bit sooner, because he went on the IL after their game on May 10th, didn't get an at-bat again until June 20th in the FCL, and didn't come back to Delmarva until 5 days later on the 25th. So maybe without that injury, Tavera comes on a little bit sooner and has a better second half. But because of some of the positive takeaways you could have from his late season stretch and his age, I haven't given up on him yet, but I do think that this year probably put a little bit of a dent in his current prospect status. And with that, now we'll go into our final segment of the night, where we shout out a player outside of the top 30 portion of our top 50 list for something they've done recently, whether it's been a good game or a good week, or maybe we just want to recognize something interesting in their stat line. And I will start with Bob this week, who has a hitter that I think we're going to be paying a lot more attention to in 2025, and a pitcher who's been one of the steadier relievers in the Orioles system for a while now.
Yeah, the hitter for me, Fernando Peguero, who after the FCL season, I mean, he had a great DSL season last year where he had a 140 WRC plus, over 270 plate appearances, showed off speed with 20 steals, a couple of home runs. Goes to the FCL this year and was a guy to watch. He got better as the year went on. Ultimately ended up with a 75 WRC plus. Still 10.9% walk rate, 13% strikeout rate. Good numbers. 32 stolen bases. And then after the FCL season ended, he went to AAA and just basically lived on their bench for the most of the second half of the season as just a warm body. He was, 4 for 15 with 4 singles in the limited action he got there, 7 strikeouts in those 15 plate appearances. But then last week or two of the season, he goes to Delmarva, where he just, in 22 plate appearances, bats .444 with a 1.268 OPS, 255 WRC plus. Just absolutely on fire. 4 walks, 5 stolen bases, a double, 2 triples. Now it's like, okay, maybe this is translatable to full season ball. If he can start back there next season, maybe he can continue to build on that. So just an interesting name to keep an eye out for. And Yaki Rivera would be my pitcher, who ends the year, I think he got the Aberdeen MVP award, a 1.99 ERA on the season, over 54 and a third innings, struck out 59 batters, walked 27. So overall, that's a 25.9% strikeout rate and 11.8% walk rate. But if you go and look at his stats from June 16th through the end of the year, he really started ramping up the strikeout stuff. Let's see how many innings this was. 30.1 innings, so more than half of a season total. 1.78 ERA with a 31.7% strikeout rate and a similar walk rate, 12.2%. Batting average against of 168. So really think Yaki Rivera starting next year in AA Bowie. And he is still just 21 years old, turned 21 a little less than 2 months ago. So still very young. I think there's a big-time relief prospect here in the making.
I like him. I'm going to go, well, I'll start with my batter, who was up in AAA. And because we're winding down, and I don't think we've mentioned his name in this segment in a while, and we have to, because this is his segment, I'm going with T.T. Bowens. He's up in AAA. Had 2 doubles and 2 home runs last week alone. So a good week for Bowens, he's only hitting 164 in 21 games since being promoted, 244 on base percentage, but he's not striking out a ton. Strikeout rate, has been pretty high throughout his career, but strikeouts look pretty good so far in AAA. And it's good to see him get a pair of home runs this week. So had to shout out T.T. Bowens before the season ends. And then my pitcher, I'm going down again to an undrafted free agent. It's been kind of a trend here for my pitchers in this segment. And Joe Glassie was an undrafted pitcher out of Illinois. He was their closer this year. He pitched a couple of outings this past week, scoreless outings, but on the year, he made 7 appearances for the Shorebirds, 7 2/3 innings pitched, just 1 earned run, no walks, 7 strikeouts, 3 for 3 in save opportunities. So stepped right into the closing role for Delmarva, which was awesome to see. Pretty good start to his pro career there. It's kind of fun to follow these undrafted free agent guys, and a couple more hopefully make their debuts next year with Delmarva. But shout out to Joe Glassie on that debut.
I'll start off with my pitcher this week, and it's a guy that we were talking about a lot early on this year, but then he hit a wall after promotion to AAA, and that's Cade Stroud. Stroud put together a pretty nice week last week as the Tides took on the Charlotte Knights, appearing in 3 games. In that span, delivered 3 innings with 5 strikeouts, no walks, while scattering 3 hits. Stroud, when he is on, has some of the best stuff of any relief prospect in this organization. He's got a really good fastball, which has looked flat out dominant in the early phases of this year. Just to recap, he started this season at Bowie, delivered 10 1/3 innings there without giving up an earned run. He was then promoted to Norfolk, and ever since then, it's been really up and down for him. But hopefully last week is a sign that he's going to come on strong in the final weeks of the season. And my hitter this week is a guy who was just promoted from high A to double A, and that's Carter Young. Young put together a really, really nice debut week at Bowie, appearing in 6 games, going 5 for 18 at the plate with 2 doubles. We have seen Young do this before, where he'll go through these really cold stretches, and then he'll have a week or two where he's hitting the ball all over the place, drawing walks, showing a little bit more power. And then he'll come back down to earth, and he'll come crashing back down to earth. And if you look at his stat line this year, in a lot of areas, he's regressed from his first full season, which was last year, split between Delmarva and Aberdeen. He did have a tough time with high A this year, but it's good to see him hit the ground running in Bowie, and hopefully we see more prolonged stretches of success from Young going forward, because there are some things that he does really well. He plays good defense as a middle infielder, can draw walks. He's got some sneaky power, but the consistency with the bat just hasn't been there during his pro career.
New age Caden Grenier, maybe? I don't know. Good to see him at least end the year at the level that he did, considering he really struggled for long stretches there. And the Orioles did give him a lot of money, but we don't need to get into that argument there. I think it was still a decent risky bet, but a bet worth taking, I think.
And that does it for this look at the Delmarva Shorebirds season. We will be back later this week to recap the High A Aberdeen Ironbirds, and we're going to talk about a lot more big-name pitching prospects, as well as some hitters that stood out during the Ironbirds season in 2024. That'll be up on later this week, and in the meantime, you can catch us on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, and YouTube. We're also over at Substack, oriolesontheverge.substack.com. And although we are in the late stages of the season, it is still a good time to sign up for our Patreon community, as our September update of our top 50 just dropped last week. We talked about some of the players we discussed tonight and more, so you're not going to want to miss that. Sign up to become a patron today. For
including
Bob Dylan,
Jordan Sanchez, for anybody interested in learning more about him.
At Ashley, you'll find colorful furniture that brings your home to life. Ashley makes it easier than ever to express your personal style with an array of looks in fun trending hues to choose from earth tones to vibrant colors to calming blues and greens. Ashley has pieces for every room in the house in the season's most sought-after shades. A more colorful life starts at Ashley. Shop in store, online today. Ashley, for the love of home.